The world of sumo wrestling is tonight mourning the death of one of its most decorated and celebrated figures. Taro Akebono was the first sumo wrestler born outside of Japan to reach the level of Yokozuna, or Grand Champion. He's credited with breaking down cultural barriers in the centuries-old sport and paving the way for a steady stream of foreign wrestlers to make it big. I'm joined live from Adelaide by Katrina Watts. She's the director of the International Sumo Federation. She served as a sumo commentator on NHK television for 20 years and was a close friend of Akebono. Katrina, thank you so much for your time this evening and our deepest condolences to you. Could you start by telling us a bit about Akebono? What kind of person was he outside of the ring?
He really was a very dedicated man. He didn't become a Yokozuna because he was big or tall or athletic. He really worked at it. So he was a role model to people even today in sumo.
And what was his technique like inside the ring? You mentioned his size. So in his prime, he was over 230 kilos. He stood at more than 2 metres tall. Was he basically an immovable object, or was it more to it than that?
Oh, a lot more than that. Well, actually, he used to play basketball when he was younger, and it was always a bit of a thing that he was a little bit too tall and he had very thin ankles. So he had to use a pushing technique to try to fend his opponents off, because if they got too close, he was a bit vulnerable to being tipped over. In fact, one of the smallest wrestlers was able to get a leg trip and down went Akebono like a huge tree. So he would fend his opponents off with very strong thrusts, and he had very long arms, so he could reach out, and then later he would grab them by the belt and throw them or lift them out. So he had a very particular technique that he honed to suit his own style, own size and style.
Now, sumo wrestling is deeply ingrained in Japanese culture. What was the landscape like when Akebono started to climb up the ranks? How common were foreign-born sumo wrestlers?
Well, he wasn't the first Hawaiian. His stable master, Takamiyama, had been the first foreigner ever to win a championship. And he scouted Akebono and brought him in. So there were steps already taken to introduce foreigners, particularly the Hawaiians, into sumo in Japan. But because he was really outstanding and, as I said earlier, so dedicated, he worked his way up the ranks in a very smooth way. He won lots of prizes, and then he came to dominate. And he was in a very strong rivalry with the Japanese prince of sumo, Takanohana. And they used to train together so hard that the stable masters had to make them stop. They really played off each other.
Now, some of the vision that we've got running here next to you, Katrina, it was from around 1997. That was the same time a number of sumo wrestlers, including Akebono, took part in an Australian tour. You also played quite a big role in that yourself. So what kind of experience was that like for the two of you?
Well, that was a lot of fun. So I was doing the commentary for another television station, and we really enjoyed ourselves. And when it was over, we actually went out fishing in Sydney, which was quite a day because it was very stormy. But we had a wonderful time, and they just loved Australia. And he made a wonderful speech to the Australians, and he deviated from the sumo plan, which at the end of their foreign tours, they always say, "Thank you very much, see you again." And he said, "I don't want to say that because we might not be back." So at the end, he said to them, "Thank you, Aussies." And the crowd just went mad because he really had a lovely feeling for Australia. And he came back when we were having an Australian sumo championship in 2010 to support us in promoting sumo in Australia. Wonderful man.
I guess you and Akebono had a few things in common. He was born in Hawaii and was originally a basketball player, as you mentioned before, finding sumo wrestling. Meanwhile, you, a Sydney-sider, head to Japan to perfect your language skills, and in the process you become immersed in sumo wrestling as well. Did you often discuss how wild a ride it's been for you both?
Well, we did talk about the ups and downs of, although we were both accepted in our spheres, and of course I was lucky to fall into sumo, you're never really quite part of that world. So we were able to support each other in how to develop the skill to fit in. And I really admired him when we were on tour, I think it was in Europe, and he was asked, having become a Yokozuna, how do you feel being the first Hawaiian Yokozuna? Are you going to become Japanese? And he said, I'm neither Japanese nor American. I am a Yokozuna. And that was him. He always had the right thing to say, and he really had such a dedication to sumo. We're going to miss him so much.
His career is filled with various other ventures. He was a huge celebrity in Japan. He also tried his hand at professional wrestling and mixed martial arts, but he was also a sumo stable master after his retirement. What kind of leader was he? What kind of teacher was he?
Well, he was very painstaking, particularly with the younger, what we call them rikishi, sumo wrestlers, because he knew how hard it was. It's a very hard life. And instead of just shouting, he would always be sure to explain things in detail and take great care with them, which made him quite a standout in the world of sumo.
So now that Akebono has passed away, Katrina, what kind of legacy does he leave behind?
I think it's like his stable master, who was once criticized for crying, and he said, it's not tears, it's sweat. Akebono was the model of, if you work hard enough, you'll be able to succeed even in an alien world like sumo. And so I think he will continue to be an inspiration to everyone, not only in sumo, but anybody who wants to succeed in a sporting career or, like me, a teaching or broadcasting career, that you should never give up, but you need to work hard to achieve your goals.
Absolutely. Katrina Watts, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.